Most women are told that beauty, charm, or youth are what truly captivate a man. But the truth is more unsettling and far more liberating. Physical allure alone cannot hold his soul. Attraction without depth is like a flame in dry grass, brilliant for a moment, but destined to burn out quickly. The women who stay imprinted in a man's psyche are not simply the most beautiful. They are the ones who awaken something eternal within him. They stir a hunger beyond the body, pulling him into a dimension he cannot explain, yet cannot resist. Have you ever wondered why some women, not necessarily the most outwardly radiant, command a man's devotion with an almost magnetic pull? Why he thinks of her in the quiet hours, haunted not by her appearance, but by the way her spirit touched his own? This is the realm where Jungian psychology, ancient philosophy, and the lived experience of love converge. A woman becomes spiritually irresistible when she embodies qualities that echo through his unconscious, mirroring his anima, the inner feminine that every man secretly yearns to reconcile with. Imagine this: a woman walks into his life, and something about her unsettles him. She may not be the loudest, nor the one who seeks to please, but there is a calm fire in her presence, a certain undefinable wholeness. He senses both softness and strength, and though he cannot articulate it, his psyche recognizes her as a mirror of what he has been missing. This is not seduction in the shallow sense. It is the deep gravitational force of individuation, where her spirit invites him to meet himself. The first thing that makes a woman spiritually irresistible is not her willingness to bend, but her capacity to remain rooted in her essence. She knows herself. In a world where many seek validation in endless mirrors, likes, comments, glances, she embodies the opposite. She becomes the still point in the turning world, as T.S. Eliot once described. Her worth does not tremble at rejection, nor does her soul shrink at the absence of praise. A man feels this in her presence, and though he may not admit it, it unnerves him. It is the serenity of someone who does not need to chase, because she already carries fullness within. But do not mistake this fullness for indifference. She is not a woman who closes her heart, hiding behind cold walls. She radiates, but selectively. She reveals her energy like sunlight through stained glass, not flooding recklessly, but coloring the space with meaning. A man senses that to be chosen by her is not casual, it is sacred. And the moment he realizes that her attention is a gift rather than a default, he is drawn into a dance where he must rise, not sink. This inner rootedness is not inherited, nor is it easy. It is often forged through fire. The spiritually irresistible woman has wrestled her shadows and learned to sit with her own loneliness. She has faced rejection and refused to let it define her. She has held her brokenness until it transformed into wisdom. It is this very alchemy, the turning of pain into presence, that makes her luminous. To a man, this depth feels like gravity itself, for he knows, consciously or not, that beauty without shadow is fragile, but beauty infused with resilience is eternal. And here lies the turning point. When a man meets such a woman, his ego feels both threatened and fascinated. Part of him longs for the safety of superficiality, where conquest is easy and validation flows quickly. But another part, the deeper, more ancient part of his psyche, knows that in her presence he must confront himself. For she is not only a lover, but an archetype, a threshold. To embrace her is to step into his own individuation, and that is a terrifying, intoxicating path. Think of it like standing before a mountain. Some men will retreat, overwhelmed by the climb. Others will begin the ascent, trembling but eager. Yet all will remember the mountain's silhouette. So it is with her. She imprints herself not because she clings, but because she is unforgettable. She calls forth not the boy, but the man, not the shadow, but the light he could become. And so the first quality that makes a woman spiritually irresistible is this: her rootedness in self, her capacity to be whole in solitude, radiant in authenticity, and selective in the gift of her presence. From this soil, all the other qualities grow. This is the beginning of the journey, the first spark of the 5 fires that shape her irresistible essence. A woman's rootedness is the soil from which the second irresistible quality blooms. Her mystery, born not from games or withholding, but from the inexhaustible depth of her inner life. Mystery is not silence for the sake of control, nor distance meant to manipulate. It is the natural aura of someone who lives in communion with something larger than approval, the woman whose life is textured with dreams, passions, rituals, and inner landscapes she does not compromise for anyone. To a man, this is like glimpsing a hidden garden behind an iron gate. He may be allowed to step in, but never to uproot it, for it belongs to her alone. The spiritually irresistible woman is not easily consumed because she cannot be fully known. Not in the sense of coldness or deception, but in the same way that the ocean cannot be charted by a single map. Every time he thinks he has reached her depths, he discovers a new current, a new underworld of meaning, a new light shining through. Dark waters. This is not artifice, it is the truth of a soul in constant evolution, a woman committed to her own individuation. Men may chase novelty in many forms, but true novelty, the kind that renews itself without end, resides in the woman who is eternally becoming. Philosophers once warned that familiarity breeds contempt, but what they often missed is that mystery renews reverence. The woman who awakens a man spiritually is not a puzzle to be solved once and discarded, but a sacred text he could spend a lifetime reading and never exhaust. Her laughter carries echoes of pain transformed. Her silences are not empty but filled with presence, and even her flaws shine with the beauty of someone unafraid to show them. She does not strive to be enigmatic. She simply is, because her soul stretches wider than anyone's grasp. And here lies the paradox. Many women fear that if they are not fully transparent, a man will lose interest. They believe that to be loved, one must be fully available, fully understood, fully given. But love, at its deepest, is not about possession, it is about reverence. A man may crave clarity, but his spirit is drawn to wonder. He may ask for certainty, but what binds him is awe. The spiritually irresistible woman knows this instinctively. She offers enough truth to connect, but not so much that she erases her own vastness. This mystery is not only for his sake, is her shield and her freedom. For the woman who makes herself too available, too predictable, too easily won, becomes an echo of his own ego's desire for conquest. But the woman who lives with her own secrets, dreams, and sacred spaces reminds him that love is not conquest but communion. In her presence, he cannot dominate. He must approach with humility, and humility is the first step toward transformation. Yet there is danger here, too. Mystery without authenticity devolves into manipulation, a shallow performance that eventually collapses. The kind of mystery that endures is not calculated. It is cultivated by a woman who truly lives in alignment with her inner life. She reads not only books, but herself. She listens to her intuition. She tends to her spiritual garden. When a man enters her orbit, he senses this fullness, and it both unsettles and anchors him. He is drawn because she is more than an image. She is an unfolding story to a Jungian eye. She represents the anima in its most fertile form. She is the dream woman who appears in visions, who awakens the man from the prison of pure logic into the realm of soul. He may not even understand why he dreams of her, or why he cannot forget her eyes, her presence, her way of being. It is because she embodies the eternal feminine, not as stereotype, but as living symbol. She reminds him that he too has depths, unexplored, and to approach her is to approach himself. This is why some men will retreat. Mystery terrifies the shallow spirit because it cannot be possessed. But to the man who is ready, the woman's mystery is not a wall, but a portal. It is an invitation to keep searching, not only for her, but for his own forgotten pieces. This is the second fire that makes her spiritually irresistible. She is not a finished surface, but an infinite horizon. And when her rootedness and her mystery converge, she becomes something rarer, paradox of solidity and wonder. He knows she will not lose herself for him, yet he also knows he will never finish discovering her. It is this paradox that chains him not with force, but with reverence. For a man does not fall to his knees before what he conquers. He falls before what he cannot exhaust. If her mystery draws him like a tide, then her third quality, her emotional radiance, anchors him in awe. Radiance is not the forced cheerfulness of someone pretending to be light, nor the shallow positivity that fears the shadow. True radiance comes from a woman who has descended into her own depths, faced her grief, embraced her rage, and returned not broken, but burning. It is the glow of a soul who has transformed wounds into wisdom and now carries a warmth that cannot be imitated. A man may be attracted to a woman's beauty, but it is her radiance that keeps his spirit restless in her absence. This radiance is not constant in expression, but constant in presence. Sometimes it shines as laughter that ripples through a room. Other times as stillness that calms his restless mind. At times it is in the way she listens, not merely hearing his words, but perceiving the unspoken beneath them. To him, this feels like standing near a hearth on a winter night. Her presence itself becomes a form of shelter. He may not admit it to anyone, but deep within, he knows that what he seeks is not merely passion, but sanctuary. And she, in her radiance, embodies exactly that. The spiritually irresistible woman does not radiate by denying her pain. On the contrary, she radiates because she has held her pain with courage. She has allowed her disappointments to teach her, not poison her. She has chosen to keep her heart open, even after betrayal or neglect, but not in a naive way, in a wise, tempered way. This is what makes her glow undeniable. It is resilience turned luminous. A man may find other women beautiful, but beauty without depth pales quickly. Radiance, however, is unforgettable because it emanates from the soul. But here is where the tension builds. A woman's radiance does more than attract, it provokes. To a man who lives half asleep in his own shadows, her light is unsettling. It exposes what he has denied in himself, the vulnerability he hides, the gentleness he fears, the chaos he has never faced. Standing in her glow, he cannot remain untouched. His ego may resist, mocking her intensity or dismissing her depth, yet part of him aches for what she awakens. He senses she is not just a companion, but a catalyst, and that is both terrifying and intoxicating. Seneca once wrote that fire tests gold and adversity tests the strong. In this sense, her radiance is fire testing, not by demand, but by existence. A man cannot hide his cracks when he stands near her. He must either step away, unwilling to endure the heat, or he must allow himself to be refined. This is why some men are drawn to such women again and again, unable to sever the invisible thread. Her radiance is not a performance for them, it is an offering of truth. To be near her is to be called higher. This emotional radiance is also profoundly feminine in essence, yet it does not fit into stereotypes of submission or passivity. It is the flame that warms and illuminates, but can also burn away illusions. Her love does not soothe his every wound blindly. It confronts him with the need to grow. She can hold him when he falters, yet she will not shield him from the consequences of his own shadows. This balance between compassion and clarity is what makes her irresistible, not only to his body, but to his very soul. And let us be honest, many women fear that to shine too brightly is to repel, to intimidate, to risk being too much. Yet it is precisely this too muchness that makes her unforgettable. For in a world saturated with surface-level attraction, a man remembers the woman who made him feel alive, who made him question himself, who lit something within him he cannot extinguish. Her radiance may challenge him, but it also nourishes him, and once he has tasted that nourishment, all else feels hollow. This is the paradox of her radiance. It both heals and unsettles. It is not meant to make him comfortable, it is meant to make him conscious, and whether he stays or flees, whether he rises or resists, her fire remains untouched, because it does not depend on him. That is why it is so irresistible. It is not a flame borrowed from another, it is her own eternal light, carried through shadow and trial, glowing all the more because it was once almost extinguished. And so, the third quality that makes a woman spiritually irresistible is this radiant aliveness, born of shadow work and transformation, glowing in her presence, her laughter, her silence, her eyes. It is the light of one who has faced darkness and chosen, again and again, to burn if her radiance illuminates the path. The fourth quality that renders her spiritually irresistible is her sovereignty, the quiet, unshakable authority with which she moves through life. Sovereignty is not hardness, not the brittle armor of someone who has sworn never to need anyone again. It is the graceful strength of a woman who knows she belongs to herself before she belongs to any man. She may love deeply, but she does not collapse into dependence. She may give generously, but she never bargains her soul for scraps of attention. This sovereignty is not spoken so much as felt, in her choices, her boundaries, her silence, and her refusal to betray herself for the comfort of others. A sovereign woman stands as her own citadel. She is not waiting to be rescued, nor does she posture with arrogance to prove her independence. Her power is quieter, more profound. It is the kind that does not need to announce itself, because it radiates from the way she carries her life. To a man, this is both intimidating and enthralling. For deep within, every man longs for a woman who does not collapse into him, but who meets him as an equal force, a partner capable of standing in the storm. This is not about domination or submission, it is about polarity, the dance between two whole beings who choose each other without needing each other to survive. And here is where many stumble. Society teaches women to fear their sovereignty, to believe that strength repels, that independence alienates, that softness must always be paired with subservience. But the truth is sharper. A man may be entertained by fragility, but he is transformed by strength. The spiritually irresistible woman is not afraid to say no, not afraid to walk away, not afraid to lose what was never truly hers. This quiet courage does not make her cold, it makes her trustworthy. For if she will not betray herself, she will not betray him either. To a Jungian lens, her sovereignty is the embodiment of individuation. She has integrated enough of her shadow to no longer seek completion through another. She sees a man not as a savior, nor as a possession, but as a mirror and companion on the path. This terrifies the unready man, whose ego craves control, but it awakens the man who is seeking his own fullness. For in her sovereignty, she becomes an archetype, the queen, not by title but by essence. A queen does not beg for a throne. She embodies it wherever she stands. Her sovereignty is also expressed in her relationship with time and attention. She does not scatter herself recklessly, giving every man the same access to her heart. She knows her energy is precious, and so she invests it with discernment. When she chooses to open her world to a man, he feels it as a privilege, not an entitlement. This subtle shift reshapes the dynamic. Instead of him granting her value, he recognizes the honor of being chosen by her. To his unconscious, this is irresistible, because it flips the script of conquest into one of reverence. And yet, sovereignty does not mean she walks alone in every sense. It means she can walk alone and still choose companionship freely. It means her joy is not diminished by solitude, and her worth is not defined by partnership. She is not desperate for union, which paradoxically makes her unions deeper, freer, less tainted by fear. A man senses this when he meets her, that she is with him not because she must be, but because she wills it. And what is freely given carries more power than what is demanded. There is, of course, a shadow side to sovereignty as well. Some women confuse it with self-isolation, mistaking walls for boundaries, control for freedom. True sovereignty does not deny vulnerability, it dignifies it. A sovereign woman can kneel without being diminished, can surrender without losing herself, can weep without shame. Her strength does not erase her softness. It protects it, so that when she gives purely. A man feels this difference. He knows whether her strength is born of bitterness or of balance, and it is the latter that entrances him. In her sovereignty, she ceases to chase, to beg, to prove. She becomes the chooser, the one who moves from abundance rather than lack. To the insecure man, this feels threatening, for he cannot control her. To the awakened man, it is magnetic, because she reflects the very freedom he desires within himself. Sovereignty, then, is not only her power, it is her gift, calling him to rise to meet her not as a boy clinging to comfort, but as a man standing in his own truth. This, the fourth flame of irresistibility, is her sovereignty, the quiet power of belonging to herself, the strength to give without losing, the courage to stand alone and still choose love. And when this flame burns alongside her rootedness, her mystery, and her radiance, she becomes not merely attractive, but unforgettably woman who changes the men who dare to love her. If sovereignty crowns her with authority, then the fifth and final quality that renders a woman spiritually irresistible is her devotion to something greater than herself. This is not blind piety nor submission to another's will, but the conscious alignment of her life with meaning. She carries a sense of transcendence, a tether to the eternal that makes her more than flesh, more than fleeting charm. Her devotion can take many forms: sad, purpose, spiritual practice, the pursuit of truth, but in every form, it reveals a heart that bows to what cannot be owned. To a man, this devotion is magnetic because it reminds him that love is not just about the two of them. It is about something vast that flows through them. A woman who embodies devotion walks with a quiet gravity. She does not scatter herself across every shallow pursuit, nor does she lose herself in vanity. Her life whispers of direction, as though guided by a compass others cannot see. To stand in her presence is to feel that life is larger, that the hours should not be wasted, that love itself is a sacred act. This is what makes her unforgettable. She is not only a partner, she is a passageway to the sacred. And in her devotion, a man glimpses his own forgotten hunger for the eternal. This quality does not demand perfection or saintliness. In fact, her devotion often grows out of imperfection, out of mistakes that taught her, losses that humbled, her shadows that brought her to her knees. Yet instead of collapsing, she used them as altars, places where pain could be transfigured into wisdom. Her devotion is therefore not fragile or naive. It is earned, weathered, and tested. A man who meets such a woman knows, even if he cannot articulate it, that her love is more than an emotion. It is a practice, a way of being, a fire that burns beyond circumstance. And here lies the culmination of her irresistibility. Her makes her steady, her mystery keeps her infinite, her radiance illuminates his soul, her sovereignty makes her untouchable, but her devotion makes her eternal. She becomes not just a woman he desires, but a woman who awakens him to life itself. For he realizes that in loving her, he is being invited to touch the sacred, to rise into his own devotion, to live with a depth he might otherwise never have reached. She is not merely a partner in romance, is a catalyst for transformation. Yet this devotion also confronts him with a choice. Some men will fear it, sensing that to love her is to be drawn into depths they are not prepared for. They will retreat, preferring the comfort of shallow waters. Others, however, will be undone in the best way possible. They will rise to meet her, discovering in themselves a strength, a tenderness, a courage they never knew they had. Her devotion, then, becomes a mirror revealing who he is and who he might become. And whether he stays or flees, she remains untouchable in her alignment with meaning. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. The spiritually irresistible woman has dyed her soul with reverence, and it shows. Everything she touches carries significance, because she herself has chosen to live not in the trivial, but in the true. To a man, this is the final, inescapable pull. He may not understand philosophy, he may not read Jung or the Stoics, but he feels it, that her presence makes him want to be more, to live more, to love more deeply than before. And so we arrive at the culmination of all five flames: mystery, radiance, sovereignty, and devotion. Together, they form the constellation that makes her spiritually irresistible. Not every man will be able to bear this light. Many will falter, many will resist. But the ones who are ready will find themselves transformed, unable to forget the woman who awakened both their longing and their becoming. The spiritually irresistible woman is not playing a role, nor is she following a script of attraction tactics. She is simply herself, integrated, luminous, sovereign, and aligned. And in being herself, she becomes the mirror in which a man confronts his own soul. That is why she is irresistible, not because she chases, but because she chooses, with the authority of someone who knows her worth. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.